Fire destroys goods at Asaba multi-million naira timber market. Federal Inland Revenue Service announces 30 days ultimatum for taxpayers to get tax clearance certificates. In international news, 2 dead at Texas church shooting while 5 are stabbed at a New York City rabbi's home. And in sport, Osimhen Oshoala optimistic about CAF awards.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The multi-million naira timber market in Asaba Delta State has been gutted by fire on Saturday, raising down millions of naira worth of goods. Eyewitnesses say the fire, which started late evening, was caused by an electric spark. One of the shop owners in the market, Olisa Steve, blamed the leadership of the market union for allowing the cold room to be built in the market. The People's Democratic Party has again criticized the administration of the ruling All Progressives Congress for the recent high rate of unemployment in the country. PDP says APC should be ready to face the consequences of overstretching the limits of Nigerians by trivializing and politicizing the frightening unemployment level under its government's watch. APC National Publicity Secretary Nare Issa Onilu had reacted on Saturday to an earlier statement issued by the PDP, stating that 40 million Nigerians had lost their jobs under the APC government. Issa Onilu claimed that those who lost their jobs were the PDP looters who were sent out of their illegitimate jobs and not the fictitious 40 million Nigerians quoted by the PDP. Workers in Kano State are breathing a sigh of relief as the state government has concluded arrangements to begin paying the 30,000 naira minimum wage. The decision was finalized at a meeting between the state government and the Joint Public Service Negotiating Council in Kano on Thursday. It was agreed that Kano State should commence the payment from this month, while April to November arrears will be settled in installments. The signing was witnessed by permanent secretaries of Ministry of Planning and Budget and that of Finance, supported by the state's chairman, NLC and TUC. The Federal Inland Revenue Service has announced that it is giving taxpayers 30 days to obtain tax clearance certificate. FIRS Executive Chairman Mohammed Nami says this is to make things easy for taxpayers. Nami says the FIRS will not fail to invoke the provisions of the law, including enforcement and imposition, should it be apparent that a taxpayer has misled the FIRS to issue a TCC. The Ijaw Youth Council has threatened to sue the Port Harcourt Electricity Distribution Company over claims that Bayelsans were owing the firm 60.5 billion naira. Ijaw Youth Council has threatened legal action should the power distribution company fail to prove its claim. The PHED had accused Bayelsans of incurring the huge debts in a statement on Thursday. The power distribution firm also accused the Ijaw Youth Council of throwing the entire state into darkness for the past 7 days by shutting down the firm's offices in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital. IYC Central Zone Chairman Kennedy Oloroguns says it was not possible for the people of Bayelsa to owe 16.5 billion naira when they hardly have power supply. Zamfara State Governor Bello Matawale has approved the suspension of 3 directors and 5 other officials from the State Ministry of Finance over alleged appointment racketeering. State Commissioner for Finance Rabiu Garba says after investigation, the state had uncovered more than 4,000 ghost workers receiving salaries amounting to 216 million naira. They were allegedly being aided by the indicted officials. Garba says the Director, Finance, Hospital Management Board, Director, Salary, State Ministry of Finance, his deputy and 5 other officials in the ministry are involved in the scheme. He said anyone found wanting would be handed over to anti-corruption agencies for possible prosecution. Garba says the public could be briefed on the outcome of the investigation in the next 2 weeks, with names of those involved and the banks associated with the crime.
Coming up, African stories. Somalia suffers large death toll in militant truck bombing. And later, international news. 2 dead at Texas church shooting, while 5 are stabbed at a New York City rabbi's home.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is CNN News. Now to African stories. The Somali capital of Mogadishu witnessed its worst attack in more than 2 years on Saturday. At least 90 persons were killed when a bomb-laden truck exploded at a busy checkpoint. According to an international organization working in the country, the explosion had raised fears of a resurgence in militant activity.
It was a morning rush hour at this tax collection center. Now, people mill around the wreckage caused by a car bomb. A suicide bomber drove the car filled with explosives through the busy street. Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo condemned the attacks, urging medical care for the injured. Most of the wounded or dead were students.
Today was a horrific day. We received the 52 injured persons at our hospital. I was also later informed that there were 29 of them with minor injuries who were discharged after receiving treatment. Many people died. We received 72 bodies at Medina Hospital. We attended to the injured patients at our hospital. We believe we can handle the situation.
Mogadishu has continued to bear the brunt of militant attacks. In 2017, the Somali capital witnessed its deadliest attack. Over 500 were killed in a truck bombing carried out by Al-Shabaab. For now, the country focuses on dealing with the latest devastating attack.
A Turkish military cargo plane has airlifted to Turkey 16 of the severely wounded persons in Saturday's truck bomb attack in Somalia's capital, Mogadishu. 2 Turkish nationals were among those killed in the truck bombing. 125 others were wounded. The Turkish cargo planes that flew the wounded persons to Turkey first offloaded large supplies of medicine and medical equipment to help overwhelmed Mogadishu hospitals to deal with a large number of wounded persons. A statement from Somalia's presidential office says Turkey has also sent doctors and medical supplies to Mogadishu to assist in treating the wounded. Saturday's Mogadishu explosion was one of the worst in Somalia's history. It occurred at a busy checkpoint. More than 30 of the dead were school and university students who were traveling on public buses during morning rush hour. The worst and deadliest truck bombing in Somalia's history happened in 2017 at a busy junction in Mogadishu. More than 500 persons were killed in that attack. Liberia was devastated by the Ebola epidemic that swept across West Africa in 2014 to 2015. More than 4 years after the end of the outbreak, the country's health system is still struggling to get back on its feet. Many public hospitals are out of drugs and some don't even have basic essentials like surgical gloves. But the country is gradually strengthening its health system.
CH Rene Hospital is the largest public hospital in Monserrado in Liberia. The hospital was hardest hit by the Ebola outbreak. Like most hospitals, it was temporarily shut down after several of its prominent health workers died. CH Rene lost over 40 health workers, with 100 plus others infected. Orator was working at the hospital at the time.
We didn't even have GYN gloves. We were just using examination gloves. And our friends kept telling us, look, Ebola is real. Ebola is real. You people have to take time. But then you come to work and pregnant woman come, what will you do? You will not send them back. You have to attend to them.
A World Health Organization report at the time showed that health workers were between 21 and 32 times more likely to be infected with Ebola than people in the general population. Part of the reason was poor training, too few staff members, and shortage or improper use of protective equipment. Fast forward, and there have been some changes. The hospital has expanded to include more bed capacity. But some of the same issues still persist.
The patients come to the hospital without anything. We all know the present situation in our country. There is nothing absolutely in the country. Can you imagine we can even buy, like last day we're buying sheets to do to take down patient report or history. Yes, that's how bad it is.
Other challenges include frequent power outages. Emergency services are lacking. Only months ago in September, health workers took to the streets protesting low wages and poor working conditions. Government says it has no money.
Last year, our total budget to the health system was $77 million. Now, out of the $77 million, almost $45 million went towards salary payment for healthcare workers. And the balance go towards supplies, medications, and you name it, drugs and so forth. If you look at our essential drugs, in order to meet the demand, we need about $22 million a year to meet that demand. And from the balance that is left over, it just cannot. So we depend on donors, we depend on partners. But the partners themselves, as the country improves, their support drops.
But despite the challenges on the curative side of the health system, Liberia has taken steps forward with regard to surveillance and early detection.
Now we have the capability in country where it doesn't matter what it is, within 12 to 48 to 24 hours, we can tell you which of the disease we are dealing with. And by then, our contact tracers, based on the strong surveillance system that we have, we can make sure that we contain it.
No doubt a major development, but for a country whose health sector is almost non-existent, early detection is just but a drop in a deep ocean. A lack of basic essential services like ambulances, proper equipment, medicine, and a demotivated workforce only means more lives could be lost.
When we return, international news. 2 dead at Texas church shooting, while 5 are stabbed at a New York City rabbi's home. And later, sports. Osimhen Oshola, optimistic about CAF awards.
A gunman opened fire during services at a church near Fort Worth, Texas on Sunday and killed 2 church members before church security shot and killed him. City Police Chief J.P. Beverin said the shooter entered West Freeway Church of Christ, sat down in the sanctuary, then stood, pulled out a shotgun and shot 2 parishioners. Sunday's shooting at the West Freeway Church of Christ was live-streamed on YouTube. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said on Twitter the places of worship are supposed to be sacred. He thanked the church members who reacted quickly to shoot the attacker, thereby preventing further loss of life. While that incident was holding attention in Texas, a horrible stabbing incident was unfolding in New York City. Law enforcement officials say a suspect who was quickly arrested and held in custody had stabbed 5 persons at a rabbi's home during the celebration of the 7th night of the Jewish Hanukkah on Saturday night. About 70 persons had gathered at a rabbi's home in Muncie, north of New York City, to celebrate Hanukkah. Police Chief Brad Wilde said on Sunday the suspect behind the attacker faces 5 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of burglary. President Donald Trump called the attack horrific. He wrote on Twitter, "The country must come together to fight, confront, and eradicate the evil scourge of anti-Semitism." New York police said the suspect stabbed and wounded 5 persons before fleeing in a vehicle. Law enforcement officials say this is the latest and most violent in a string of anti-Semitic attacks in the greater New York City area in the last few days. Russian President Vladimir Putin has thanked his U.S. counterpart, President Donald Trump, on Sunday for information that Putin said helped Russia foil terrorist attacks over the New Year's holiday. The Kremlin said in a brief statement posted on its website, Putin's thanks to Trump were for information transmitted through the special services that helped prevent the completion of terrorist acts in Russia. Russian state news agency is reporting that the U.S. information had helped the Russian security forces to detain 2 Russians suspected of preparing to carry out terrorist acts in St. Petersburg during the upcoming holiday. The security service said it obtained the information from its American partners. It says it seized material from the suspects that confirms they were preparing terrorist acts. It offered no further details, and there has been no White House comment on the statements. While additional thanks to President Trump, Vladimir Putin was being condemned by Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki on Sunday for Putin's assertion that Poland was responsible for the outbreak of World War II. Morawiecki said Moscow was lying to deflect attention from recent failures. Poland's foreign minister had already summoned the Russian ambassador in protest on Friday. It says World War II began with the Soviet-German alliance and that Poland lost around 6 million citizens in the conflict. The Polish Prime Minister said in a statement, quote, President Putin has lied about Poland on numerous occasions and he has always done it deliberately. Before the German invasion of Poland in 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union had agreed to carve out Eastern Europe between them. The Soviets attacked Poland in September 1939 and occupied part of its territory. Hitler then launched a surprise attack against the USSR in 1941. The current row comes as bilateral tensions are running high, with NATO and EU member Poland fearing what has been described as Russian military adventurism and imperialist tendencies. A Spanish energy company, Voltas Bladeless, has come up with a new design for wind generators bladeless. It is believed this new design will be cheaper and more reliable. The new design looks like a giant straw in the ground. It harnesses wind energy without the need for rotating windmill blades. Reporter Guy Henderson has more on the story.
Take a short drive outside the capital, and it's clear that wind power is a big part of the solution. Spain is one of Europe's leading producers of wind energy.
You can hear they're pretty noisy for starters. They take up a lot of space, so that means they're not necessarily suitable for densely populated areas. Plus there's a lot of moving parts, and that means a lot of maintenance. Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Very good to meet you.
David Yanez runs a company called Vortex Bladeless and believes he's found a new way to harness the wind's energy while avoiding these shortfalls.
We have a way to collect energy from the wind, to transmit energy from the fluid to the structure.
So it oscillates in the wind to create energy.
Exactly.
Is it complicated, or how many moving parts do we have inside?
What we have is a carbon fiber rod that absorbs the deflection, okay, and nothing else. What we are trying to do is to develop a new technology, a new tool that maintains similar characteristics than the solar panels. For example, not to produce noise, reduce the visual impact, to avoid maintenance as far as possible.
Here we have the wind tunnel. You can just see it's completely made from wood.
Prototypes are tested in this wind tunnel.
It's a phenomenon that you can usually see on flags, on chimneys. Also, well, in aeronautics, it's well known, but everybody is trying to avoid it because it causes some turbulences on the planes, on whatever, and it can make the buildings collapse. Nobody has investigated how to enhance this process or how to absorb the much amounts of energy from the wind in this way.
You really are the pioneers, really. No one else has really been doing anything.
This is state of the art. This is completely new in everything. All the patents are new, all the investigation, all the papers.
The hope is to roll out the Vortex bladeless in cities. At less than 3 metres tall, they'd fit on a small roof, even an apartment balcony. The dream, though, is scaling up, so that one day, wind farms like these can be bladeless.
Up next, sports. Osimhen Oshoala confident about CAF awards. Please stay with us.
Super Eagles striker Victor Osimhen and Super Falcons captain Asisat Oshoala are super confident of winning their categories at the CAF Awards. Osimhen was nominated for the African Youth Player of the Year award alongside fellow Nigerians Samuel Chukwueze and Morocco's Ashraf Hakimi. Oshoala is in contention for the Women's Player of the Year award alongside Cameroon's Ajara Scoot and South Africa's Thembi Gatsalana. With a little more than 3 weeks to the draw for the second round of the African qualifying series for the 2022 World Cup, there are speculations there might be a possible deliberate favourable draw for the home countries of CAF executive members. The draw involving 40 teams is expected to be conducted at Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Cairo in mid-January. The 5 winners will advance to the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Indications of the President Ahmed Madagascar, along with Constant Omaris DR Congo, Fuzug chose Morocco, and Egypt, the Secretariat of CAF will be favoured to qualify for the World Cup.